Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. In the quiet neighborhood where my wife and I resided, an insidious figure emerged, the self-proclaimed Homeowners Association's president from hell. This tale, filled with treachery and vindictiveness, recounts the multitude of atrocities he committed against us. However, what began as a mere clash of wills escalated into a harrowing battle that would forever change our lives. Our guide dog, an indispensable companion for my blind wife, became the first target of the Homeowners Association's president's spiteful campaign. Despite our rightful claim that service animals were exempt from size restrictions, he vehemently insisted that our beloved dog violated the community's rules. Unable to win his argument, he resorted to a more sinister plan. One fateful day, we discovered our faithful companion gravely ill, having ingested poison. Swift veterinary intervention saved his life, but suspicions grew. Investigation revealed that the Homeowners Association's president had laced dog treats with toxic substances, intent on removing the giant dog from the neighborhood. Though the evidence eluded us, we remained resolute, vowing to unveil his malevolence. The relentless assault on our lives continued as the Homeowners Association's president set his sights on my prized possession, a cherished Buick GSX. Ignorant of its value and ignorant of the bylaws, he demanded its removal, hurling threats of confiscation. Armed with knowledge, I challenged his authority, presenting the rules that sanctioned my car's presence. Enraged by his failed attempts to control us, the Homeowners Association's president orchestrated an act of vandalism. He callously maneuvered his RV, mercilessly crushing my classic car, reducing it to a mangled wreck. Unbeknownst to him, a vigilant neighbor captured the dastardly act on video, providing the irrefutable evidence we needed to expose his true nature. With the legal battle looming, we embarked on a journey towards justice. As the court proceedings unfolded, the Homeowners Association's president's lies crumbled before the judge's discerning gaze. The truth emerged, painting him as a malevolent force hell-bent on causing harm. The court ruled in our favor, awarding a substantial settlement of $300,000, delivering a resounding blow to his hubris. But the story didn't end there. The wheels of justice continued to turn. Charged with animal cruelty and property destruction, the Homeowners Association's president faced the consequences of his actions. Though imprisonment eluded him, he received a fitting punishment, sentenced to community service and burdened with a criminal record. Stripped of his position, he was cast aside by the very community he once ruled with an iron fist. As the legal battle raged, we delved deeper into the depths of his deceit. Our relentless pursuit of truth exposed his clandestine operations. A supposed luxury goods business turned out to be a web of deception and money laundering. An anonymous tip led authorities to investigate further, unraveling his scheme. The IRS swooped in, revealing his hidden income and fake merchandise, leaving him bankrupt and on the brink of ruin. Facing financial ruin and the loss of his wife, the Homeowners Association's president's empire crumbled. With no one to turn to, he fled, leaving behind a wake of shattered dreams and broken promises. Our quest for justice had not only toppled a corrupt leader but also unearthed the extent of his criminal activities, ensuring he would never again prey upon unsuspecting victims. In the aftermath of our ordeal, we emerged stronger with a renewed sense of purpose. Our fight against injustice had left an indelible mark, not just on our lives, but on the entire community. The once dreaded Homeowners Association's president became a cautionary tale, a symbol of the consequences awaiting those who abuse power. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I was visiting my friend at his dad's house in an area where the land is so steep that all the driveways have to switch back up from the main road to the houses. A straight driveway is not an option because it would be steeper than the building code allows. A few doors down the road, there lived a nice old couple who until recently had a vacant lot next door to them, but the lot had been sold and the new owner had started construction on a new house. Unfortunately, the lot was so steep that the new owner built his driveway partly on the old couple's land. It was carved out of the hillside with an excavator. This probably wouldn't have been a big deal if the new owner had approached the old couple first and asked nicely, but did he? Would I be telling this story if he had? In fact, the old couple had no idea what was happening until they came home one day to see a huge scar in the hillside snaking up from the road in front of their house, across the corner of their property, and winding upwards to where an excavator was working to prepare the land for their new neighbor's house. They were pretty upset, but being nice, reasonable people, they figured it was an honest mistake, so they went over to talk to the machine operator. He didn't know anything useful, but he was happy to give them the phone number of the new property owner. The old guy gave him a call and politely explained the situation, but his new neighbor, whom he'd never even met, was having none of it. He flat out denied that the driveway crossed the property line, and he was rude enough that the old guy was pretty upset. At this point, the old couple weren't sure what to do. They double-checked the property pins to make sure they were right, and of course they were. But after further conversations with the new owner, it was clear he was an unreasonable guy who wasn't going to come to the negotiating table willingly. The old couple didn't want to take legal action because that would have been expensive, and frankly, the damage to their yard was already done. At the same time, they couldn't just let someone walk all over them like that, especially if they were going to be living next door for the foreseeable future. So the situation stewed for a while as construction continued on the new house, until one day when my friend's dad saw the old couple in the neighborhood and they started chatting. Of course, they told him the story about the new neighbor. Now, my friend's dad really likes the old couple who don't have a mean bone in their bodies, so he was pretty pissed about the situation, and when he went home, he couldn't get it out of his head. That evening, after a few beers, he had a brilliant idea. He called up the old couple, explained his plan, and asked for their permission to carry it out. They chuckled and gave him the go-ahead, so he hopped into the rusty old full-size pickup he kept as a second vehicle and drove it over to the old couple's place, where he parked it across the encroaching driveway, making sure it was entirely on their property. The next morning, the work crew arrived bright and early to find that they couldn't drive to the house they were building because some jackass had parked a crippy old F-150 across the driveway. They saw the note in the window with my friend's dad's phone number on it, so they called him to ask what the hell was going on. He explained that he had permission from the owners to park there and that, no, he would not move his truck so they could get to work. Furthermore, if anyone attempted to tow the truck, they would be charged with trespassing and theft. There was no way the construction guys were going to haul all their tools up the hill by hand, and they didn't want to get in the middle of a legal battle, so they just called the new owner to let him know they'd be taking the day off and that they'd continue to take days off until the property boundary dispute was resolved. The new owner called the old couple in a fury, but the old couple told him the same thing my friend's dad told the construction workers. Basically, the vehicle was parked on their own property, so if he had a problem with that, he could go duck himself. To make an already long story shorter, the new neighbor ranted for a while, but eventually he wanted his house to be built. So the nice old couple ended up with a significant sum of money in exchange for an easement, allowing the driveway to pass across the corner of their property, and my friend's dad got several thank you cases of beer and the satisfaction that comes from putting an a-hole in his place. The next one is a petty revenge story. So, when I was in high school, I was on the speech and debate team, if you're unfamiliar. Think drama club meets young Democrats, young Republicans. I mostly did the public speaking events that focused on real-world political topics, and I loved it. I usually made it to finals in my events, but I had fun even when I didn't and made some really great friends from other schools. If I wasn't in finals, I would go watch others who were competing to support my teammates. There was a girl I saw at almost every tournament. Let's call her MM, and I didn't do any of the same events because she focused more on the drama side of speech and debate. But M was constantly comparing herself to other people and would get really arrogant if she made it to finals in her events and I didn't make it to finals in mine. Anytime she didn't make it to finals in her events, she would cry and accuse the judges of not being fair and would then pout in the cafeteria throughout finals and sometimes wouldn't even go to awards to support her teammates who did win something. In conversation, she was also a big one-upper. You could never talk about anything fun or cool you did because she'd always done something cooler or more fun. If you've ever seen Glee, she was a real-life Rachel Berry. She and I are still friends on social media, although we haven't personally spoken very much since high school. I've watched her flaunt now 2 different failed engagements, along with a slew of random jobs that never seemed to work out for very long. I don't post as much on social media, so she didn't really know what was going on in my life. My long-term partner and I found out in early March that we were pregnant. We had been trying for a baby, and didn't think it would ever happen, because we had been told by doctors that our chances of conceiving naturally were slim. So this baby means everything to us. Before we even got pregnant, we had agreed on a name for our baby if we were to have the boy we both wanted. In high school, my grandmother had told me that if she had ever had a son, this was the name she was going to give him. However, she only had 2 girls. I fell in love with the name immediately and told her that if I ever have a son, I would give him this name. She passed away while I was in college, but I'm still in love with the name and fully intend to honor that promise I made to my grandmother. Thankfully, my partner also fell in love with this name when I told him about it. Flash forward to the present day. My partner and I were about a week away from finding out if we were having a boy or a girl, and then one day on Instagram, I see a post from M announcing that she is pregnant with a boy. She's due 2 months before me. At this point, I hadn't announced my own pregnancy publicly yet, so M didn't know, but some of our mutual friends knew. One of them, who was really close to her, informed me that she had shared her baby name list with her and that the name my grandmother picked out was on the list. M had specifically said that she remembered me talking about liking that name at a speech tournament in high school and that the name had stuck with her ever since, particularly because the name is shared by her favorite poet. She told our mutual friend that that name was her top choice, but her partner had a different preference, so they were still going back and forth about it. My partner and I recently found out that we are also having a boy and are using the name we love regardless of what M names her baby, because what difference is it really going to make, especially because we don't even live in the same state and these children will probably never meet. It's also not a unique, rare name by any means, so to us it feels silly to act like only one of us can use it. But this is where I got my small dose of petty revenge. After we learned the gender of the baby, we decided to go ahead and announce our pregnancy publicly. And since we already had his name picked out, and it's something we know we're not going to change our minds about since it has so much sentimental value, we decided to include his name in the announcement. So M learned that I was also pregnant, having a boy, and using the name I loved. I would be lying if I said that I hadn't thought about M's reaction when my partner and I made the decision to also announce our baby's name. M hasn't said anything to me about the baby or about our name choice, but apparently she has had a lot to say to our mutual friends. She said if she can talk her partner into it, she still wants to use that name for her son, and that since her baby will be born first, if I do end up using it for my son as well, then I'm just copying her. She has apparently become obsessed with trying to find out details about my pregnancy and my relationship with my partner since I don't post as much on social media. She's been harassing our mutual friends asking about me, to the point where several of them are starting to cut ties with her because it's getting to be too much. Even her partner has reportedly told her that she's going overboard and has apparently vetoed this name for their son because he thinks she's too weirdly fixated on it and me and wants her to stop stirring the pot. So I'm having a baby with the man of my dreams, getting to finally use the name my grandmother fell in love with decades ago. And as an added bonus, my friends from high school are finally seeing how weird M is for the way she constantly tries to compete with different people. The next one is a malicious compliance story. In the 1980s, I was the general manager of a cable television company. Of all the reports we had to generate for our corporate office, the converter reconciliation report was probably the most important. Every cable TV office in nearly every company had to complete one monthly. If you're of a certain age, you'll remember the converter boxes that connected the TV and the cable so that the customer could tune in to all the channels. Well, let me tell you, they were expensive, and we had to account for every one of them every month. Many were in customers' homes, but others were on technicians' trucks, in inventory, in repair, lost, stolen, and so on. The converter reconciliation report told us how much of this important asset was in use and where it was. It had to be correct, and it had to be in corporate's hands monthly without fail. The company was run by a bunch of disorganized idiots. Every month I would submit this important report to corporate, and they would call, wanting to know where it was and why I hadn't completed it. Every month I would have to send them another, and they would call again, angry, and I would send another. Wash, rinse, repeat. 4 or 5 times every month they would lose my report and call, threatening to fire me for not getting the report in on time. I was always in trouble for allegedly not sending my converter reconciliation report. Cue malicious compliance. Having had enough of corporate's BS, I took the completed converter rec report and made 22 photocopies of it. 22 being the average number of workdays in a month. I put one in each of the 22 envelopes addressed to the corporate office, put postage on each envelope, and then made sure that in each day's outgoing mail, one report was sent. Sure enough, the angry phone call came. Manager, where's your monthly converter rec? Me, should be in your mailbox, did you check? Manager, oh, here it is, okay, thanks. A few days later, manager, where's your monthly converter rec, damn it? Me, should be in your mailbox, boss, did you check? Manager, oh, here it is, okay, thanks. Wash, rinse, repeat. Finally, after about 3 weeks, I get a phone call. Manager, why do I have a stack of the same converter rec report? Me, I just always want you to have one handy, boss. After that, they quit losing my report. The next one is an entitled people story. We were booked to go out for a meal for a teammate who was leaving. He asked to go for an Indian. I'm a celiac, and this is one of the places where I can always get food without worrying about cross-contamination. So, for once, I was able to accept the invite. An hour before we are about to leave, one of the people on a different team says that he doesn't want to go for an Indian, but instead wants to go to the local brewery for a meal and a beer. The guy whines until my teammate agrees. When they go to leave, I wish my teammate good luck in the future and hope he enjoys his evening. Cue a shocked look from him. Why am I not going? Dude, we've worked together for 3 years, and you know I'm allergic to gluten, and you want to have a leaving do in a brewery where they make beer around where you eat? My teammate looks shocked and tells me it's not a big deal, just come. Seriously, it's a big deal. He says that he wants me there, and I say, it's okay, but I really can't go to that place. The guy who forced the change of venue overhears it and tells me I'm being difficult. I should just suck it up. Just because no one wanted to go for an Indian, I shouldn't sulk. The thing is, I get it. It's his leaving due. He gets to choose where he wants to go, and if I can't attend, then I can't attend. That's just how it goes. I try to minimize it and not be a pain. They made it into an international scandal by doubling down on me and calling me out for not being a good colleague. I packed my bags and left. Now here's the karma. The beer was off, and they were all ill the next day. The microbrewery got closed down a few weeks later. When the guy from the other team was moaning the next day about how ill he was, he turns to me and says, "You're lucky you didn't go because you'd have been ill too." What? I ask. Yeah, he says, you'd have been ill from drinking the beer. I looked at him and said, you really don't understand why I couldn't go to the brewery at all, do you? In the end, everyone who went to the meal had to go home and were off for a couple of days, apart from one teammate who turns out doesn't drink. I left a few months later as the whole place was toxic. The next one is an entitled parent story. This happened yesterday on the bus to a pub with myself and 4 of my friends. We are LGBTQ+ and gothic, so I want you to imagine what we looked like. Not on the job. I am a childcare professional and work in a nursery near my home. I work in the preschool, ages 3, 5, and am very well received in my field. Other nurseries often request my help with observations, room design, parental-related issues, etc., so I am often spotted in nurseries that are not mine and often have conversations with parents I would never usually cross. There's my backstory. Now on to the story. My friends and I are on our way to our local pub on the bus on a Saturday evening. We aren't incredibly loud, but it's an empty bus and we're jolly. When a mother and young boy come onto the bus, I recognize her, although I have no idea where from. I try to keep my head down because I also don't want to interact with any work responsibilities. She sits down away from me, and I sigh thankfully. I go back to our conversation and forget about it. I want to stress we are 10 minutes from being in the clear. The mother stands up and walks towards us. I notice instantly and nudge my friends to quieten down. Hello, aren't you OP from my nursery? Yeah, that's me. I'm sorry, I recognize you, but I can't place you. Which nursery do you go to? Another nearby nursery. Ah, lovely. And he's in the preschool, right? Lovely place. Yeah, it is. You look a bit different from work. I almost didn't recognize you, she said, and her face scrunched up like actually putting her nose in the air. Ahaha, yeah, well, I'm often in a uniform and no makeup, so this is what I usually look like, I guess. The group was silent, she was silent, I was silent. It was so awkward for like 2 minutes. My friend to my left cleared his throat and said, Is there anything else? Are you drinking? Yes. Don't you have work? No, there is no nursery on the weekends, I said. Well, aren't you on the clock for babysitting? I do babysit often. However, parents have to book in advance, and I'm free this weekend. Well, what if there is an emergency? I think parents have family members that could help. Like I said, they have to book in advance. Aren't you at work on Monday? I am, but I won't drink tomorrow. I will just recover. Don't you think that's irresponsible? Also, what if some parents see you drunk? That's unprofessional. It would be unprofessional if I was working, but I'm not working. I have the weekend off. And what if you see one of your kids out? They're not my responsibility outside of work. Of course, I will always be delightful and kind, but they are not my responsibility. But don't you think it's unprofessional? My friend started laughing at this point, purely because she didn't seem to grasp the fact that I wasn't working. No, I don't. I believe I am allowed to go out and spend my free time as I choose, much like everyone else. Right, and you think dressing like that is appropriate? Yes, because I will be going to a club after the pub. It has been lovely seeing you, but this is our stop, so I'll have to say goodbye, I said. It was not my stop. My stop was the next stop, but my friends had been drinking, and I do not trust them. We all got off and had a few minutes of walking, but none of us could stop talking about the interaction. My friend walked into the pub and scoped the floor, making sure no parents with kids were there. Okay, the floor is clear. My name can enter, she said, and I laughed as I walked to the table. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.